Record. I'm going to mute you. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm just going to quickly check my phone in case Sally was having technical problems. Okay, so we're going to start leaning back onto your hands with your legs long out in front of you. And maybe just a little bit of rolling your legs or bouncing your knees, just letting them settle down. And then a bit of pointing your toes away from you and pointing your heels away from you. And seeing how that feels in the ankles. And then from here, let's keep leaning onto your right hand and bring your left arm around the back of your left knee. And then you're going to do a bit of circling of your left ankle like this. So if you're supporting behind your left knee with your left arm, that's it. And then you can circle your ankle in one direction and then in the other. Good, and keep leaning onto that right hand. Now from here, we're going to swap our arms over. So you're going to then hold on to the outside of your left foot with your right hand and lean onto your left arm and hand. That's it. So you can do this sort of swinging movement of the left leg to the right and to the left. That's nice. And just see how that feels. Do that a few more times. So sort of side to side swinging of the leg in the hip joint. And actually from here, we're not going to do anything particularly with this, but just see how it feels if you then bring that leg down onto the floor. So it's in you're in a sort of half of cobbler pose, should I say. And then swap your legs over. So lengthen out your right leg, your left leg. Keep leaning onto your left hand and bring the right arm around the back of the right thigh. So the first thing is this circling into the right ankle. So we're leaning onto the left hand and arm. I can already feel today my lefts and rights are not very good, so bear with me. Good, so circling one way, circling the other. That's very nice. And then you're going to swap your arms over. So hold on to the outside of your right foot with your left hand, lean onto your right arm, and do this sort of swinging of your leg from side to side. Good, and just see how that feels. So it should be sort of quite easy, quite sort of loose movement, hopefully. Letting the legs swing a bit to the right and to the left a couple more times. And then again, we'll let that leg come down onto the floor. And in fact, this time you're going to bring the left leg to join it. So you're bringing both feet into cobbler pose and seeing how that feels. And you can be leaning back on your hands to start with. And you can walk in a little bit. So it's quite early for cobbler pose, so don't worry if it doesn't feel amazing. You could, if it feels okay, maybe hold on to your feet or your ankles and just see what it's like to do a little bit of rocking from side to side. So we'll probably come back. We will come back to cobbler pose, and we may well come back to a bit of this rocking. Oh good, Sally's joining us a bit later on. So if this doesn't feel great, so perhaps a couple more times, rocking from side to side. Hi Sally, nice to see you. We're just starting with a few things in sitting. And then again, lengthen your legs out, give them a little bit of a roll. And we're going to do one more thing in sitting. So what I'd like you to do now, I'm going to swing round so I'm side on, is just sit so you've got your feet like this, not too close into you. So we can do a very easy twist. We can turn and hold around the sort of top of our knees, turn in one direction, fingertips on the floor behind you. And then you can turn the other way. It could be that you take your arm under around the back of your knees if you prefer. I'll face you, I think, rather than, that's it. So just in it, whichever way you prefer. We'll go both ways twice. Whichever way you prefer, holding either around the top of your knees or under around the back of your thighs to give a bit of support for your spine so we can do this little twist. Good. So we've gone in both directions twice for a couple of breaths. And then staying in this position and be towards the front of your mat. We're just going to do this very sort of initial movement. I'm not going to get you to do all these abdominal ones at this point in the day, but I'd like you to start with this first movement where we're sliding our hands from our feet up towards our knees, looking down at our belly, thinking about the back rounding out. So just repeating this several times. So yeah, looking down, sliding the hands from the feet towards the knees, and actually really just feeling, how does your lower back feel today? And so it might be one of those days when your lower back is feeling, you know, pretty good, but it might be a day when you're feeling quite tight, in which you just need to be, you know, careful. Now from here, you're going to roll yourselves all the way back down onto your back and let your knees fold into your chest. And you can just have a few breaths there. So you've arrived on your back. Might be nice to, well, when you're there, you could either do a little bit of rocking from side to side, or you can, as well, or you can take your legs up to the ceiling, give your legs a bit of a shake out. See how that feels. Good. Very nice. And arms, yes, arms can be added in as well. That's good too. And then on your backs, I'd like you to see, how does it feel to come into cobbler pose on your backs? So you're not with your feet on the floor, but actually see, can you catch on to, it may be you can catch onto your feet. It may be you catch onto your ankles, either is fine. And then can you do a little bit of rocking from side to side? Once you're holding on either to the feet or the big toes or the ankles. You've got your feet in some sort of cobbler pose. We don't need to be too precise about this, but yeah, your hands are on the inside and your knees are going out to the side. And you're rocking from side to side across the back of your body. And you can try, if your feet are fairly near to your bottom, you can try taking your legs a bit higher up towards the ceiling and do a bit more rocking. That's it. And just notice as you lift your feet, where you're rocking on your back changes. Good. Just do a little bit more rocking here. And whenever you've had enough, you can bring your feet down onto the floor. And you might like to lengthen your legs out on the floor for a moment. Just let the legs be long. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Yeah, so a couple of breaths lying with your legs long on the ground, just feeling the length of the back of your body in contact with the ground. You might like to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. See if you can feel the movement of your breath in your body. And then in your own time, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And we're going to come to just a couple of rocking movements. So the first one I'd like you to do is just, tilting your knees exactly, Helen, to the right and to the left. So very simple. Often this is the first thing we do. Just using this tilting movement of the knees to the right and to the left, just to help you sense into how your body is today. So feeling around the pelvis, hip joints, lower back. Usually if we are feeling a bit stiff somewhere, a bit creaky, that place makes itself known. Good, so once, twice more in each direction. And then pause in the center and keep your feet on the ground, but give yourself a hug with your arms. So you're crossing your elbows over your chest. And now do a bit of rocking like this, but you're adding in the arms and the head. So the elbows are now tilting in the same direction as the knees. And the head is rolling. That's nice. So you're just now, it's a bit more this feeling of rolling from side to side across the back of the body. Lovely. Now, in a moment, we're going to roll. We're going to come and do anantasana, which is that sort of side balance where we come into tree pose on our side. So you're going to roll all the way onto one side. Doesn't matter which, because we'll do both sides. And you're going to settle yourself down on your side. And this is being long on your side. So I quite like to, you see, you could have your bottom arm bent and you could be resting your head down. I like to prop my head up in my hands, so it's really entirely up to you. I'd like you to have your top hand on the floor in front of you to start with, and you'll probably see why in a moment. And first of all, you could do a little bit of rocking, just this sort of settling ourselves on the side of our body. But I'd like us to pay a little bit more attention to the sort of tree pose part of this than we normally do. And so what you're going to do when you're ready is starting to just see, can you slide the sole of your top foot up and down the inside of the bottom leg a few times? So what you're trying to feel is how can you get the sole of your foot onto the inside of the bottom leg, and where can you slide that foot to? And it's interesting, I was noticing in doing this, it's quite different for me one side to the other. So this is my harder side, I can't slide the foot as far up. So just, yeah, a couple more times, sliding your foot up towards tree pose and then back down again. So we're really feeling the sole of the foot in contact with the inside of the bottom leg. Now this time you're going to slide your foot up and stay in tree pose. And if you feel that you could bring your foot a bit higher if you used your hand, then do so. So it might be that you need to catch your ankle to bring it a bit higher up on this side. And then you might need to bring your hand back onto the floor. So just a few breaths in tree pose, keeping your foot pressing into your bottom leg. And then from here, we'll move on into a bit further into anantasana. So you can then let this top knee, this tree pose knee, fold in towards your armpit in the top side of your body. And if you're feeling very wobbly at this point, you could bend your bottom knee and slide it forwards. And then from here, we catch our ankle, our shin, our big toe, our trouser leg, and we see how it feels to slowly lengthen our leg up towards the ceiling, trying to stay settled through the side of the body. So that feeling we're stretching away the top leg, we're catching that top leg somehow, so we're giving it some support with our top arm or hand, and we're breathing and settling through the back. No, through the side of the body. Good. I'm ahead of myself. So maybe another breath or so there. And then you're going to slowly make your way down, and you are going to roll onto your back, which is what I was thinking of. So from here, slowly make your way down, roll yourself onto your back, and just have a few quiet moments on your back. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. So it's often when we come back onto our back from having done something that's when we're able to settle and really enjoy it. So perhaps another 2 or 3 cycles of breath, feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. And then when you're ready, you're going to roll onto your second side. So we're coming onto side 2 of anantasana, and we're going to do the same things on this side. So organising yourself, settling yourself on side 2, and have your top hand on the floor in front of you. You can either be resting your head down on your bottom arm, or you can, be propping your head up on your hand. And then come back to those little explorations we were doing of starting to slide. Can we orientate, first of all, the sole of the top leg foot onto the inside of the bottom leg? Can we start to slide that foot up and down on the inside of our leg? And where does this foot go to on this side? So for me, I really noticed that there was quite a difference, that I could slide this foot quite a bit further up than I could on the other side. And so that's perhaps an observation about just movement, maybe capacity for movement in the hip joint. And so eventually you're going to slide your foot into a place where you could keep it for a few breaths for tree pose. If you want to use your hand to bring your foot into a more satisfactory place, do so. You can have your top hand on the floor. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And from your tree pose, you can then start to move on to bringing your knee towards your armpit and the top side of your body, keeping settled all the time. We're trying to keep settled through the bottom side of our body. Maybe we can catch our foot, our ankle, our leg, lengthen that top leg up towards the ceiling. Can we still settle through the bottom side of the body? And again, sometimes it's much easier to settle through one side than the other. Good, have a few breaths on this side. Now, I think from here, we're just coming back and settling on our side. We're not rolling back onto our back again. So when you make your way down, just come and lie quietly on your side, maybe bending your knees. So just sort of coming out, settling down, having a few quiet breaths on the side of your, on your side. Good. That's nice. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from your side, we're coming over onto hands and knees. So when you're ready, come and settle yourself on hands and knees. So settling on hands and knees. And when you're ready on hands and knees, we're going to do some cat movements, see how they feel today, right now. So on hands and knees, letting the back round to the ceiling, letting the spine dip down to the floor. And just seeing how these movements of the spine, how do they feel in your body today? Notice how it feels to rest down through the bones of your arms. And how do your knees feel on the floor? You could notice also, what's your breathing doing? When are you breathing in? When are you breathing out? There's no right or wrong to this, but we could be aware of what our breathing is doing. And then when you're ready, we're going to move into dog pose. And we're going to move from the rounded up cat, so in a slightly different way than we usually go into dog. So you're going to round your back to the ceiling, tuck your toes under, and as you exhale, so go right up, send your bottom up to the ceiling, high onto the balls of your toes. Let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, bend your knees so you can send your pelvis back into dog. And then you might be wanting to bend one knee at a time, a bit of walking on the spot, easing into this first dog pose and just sort of seeing how it feels. And as you all know, you've all done lots and lots of yoga, that dog pose can just feel so different every time we do it. There's familiarity, but there's also always a little bit difference. Good. Few breaths. And it might be, as this is the first dog pose, you don't want to stay there that long. We're going to come down when you're ready. We're going to do a little bit of, yes, you might want to sit back and give your hands a shake out for a moment. So we're going to come and do a bit of some tail wagging things, and then we're going back into dog pose again. So coming back to leaning, resting down through your arms and your knees. And just how does it feel to imagine you have a tail and to start to wag or swish that tail from side to side? And we can also do these similar movements by swinging the legs from side to side. So swinging the lower legs from side to side, we can do, has that similar effect on lengthening us through one side of the body, shortening us through the other. So we can do that more slowly and look towards the feet. Or we can do it quickly swing the legs from side to side, and I would not then look at my feet. Okay, let me just come back to a couple of times of wagging your tail without moving your feet. And then we'll come up into dog pose again. And we'll come back into dog pose more the usual way we do, by tucking our toes under, rocking our hips back over our heels, picking our knees up off the floor, seeing how it feels to come into this second dog pose. Having a few breaths there. And so perhaps in the second dog pose, we maybe just feel a bit better able to settle into dog. But there's still, I'd say, plenty more dogs to come. But yeah, it's all a process of settling. How do the shoulders feel? How do the back of the legs feel? From this dog pose, you're going to have a couple of breaths in child pose. So whenever you feel that that would be a nice thing to do, settle down into child pose. There's that, if it's possible for you, that sort of very soothing feeling of the forehead resting on the floor. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. So we're going to come into quite a, it's a kind of simple sequence, but with some really key poses in it. We're going to be moving from plank pose through dog into a forward bend, down through a squat. So yeah, quite simple, but also really, I suppose, yes, key poses. So come towards the front of your mat. We're going to see how it feels in our plank pose today to start with. So shoulders over the wrists, you're going to lengthen one leg back behind you, add the other leg in. Have a few breaths here. So seeing how does it feel to stay and breathe in plank pose. And from plank pose, we'll move on into dog pose. So as you exhale, sending your pelvis up and back, it can feel quite a long dog pose. So you might want to have a breath there, and then you may want to walk your feet in a little bit to come into a more comfortable dog. And then have a few breaths in your dog pose. All those things we can do, bending the knees, bending one knee, bending both knees. And then from dog pose, you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet. So you come into a forward bend. So all of the weight's in the feet. At this point, notice how your lower back feels. If it feels that you need some support, bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. So in your forward bend, you're either letting your arms hang or you've got your elbows on your thighs. Have another breath or two in the forward bend. We're going to start to bend our knees now down over our feet into a squat. Don't worry if your heels come up, because we're sort of moving through this. Yeah, we're going to, in fact, this, I forgot to say, the key thing from here is coming down through our squat. And then from your squat, I would like you to have your hands on the floor behind you so you can sit down into cobbler pose. And just see how that cobbler pose feels. And that might not be the most elegant movement for all of us, but we arrive in cobbler pose, and we could come back just to a little bit of that rocking from one sit bone to the next. Okay, so we're going to do this little sequence twice more. And to come from here, so to come from cobbler pose back into plank pose, let one knee rock over on top of the other, so into side sitting. And then you can bring yourself back onto hands and knees, back towards the front of your mat. So we're coming back to plank pose again. So settling those shoulders over your wrists, lengthening one leg back behind you, adding the other one in. Seeing how it feels to be back in plank pose, having 2 or 3 cycles of breath. Feeling that you're supporting yourself through the bones of your arms. And you know when you're in that long straight line of plank, because your abdominals kick in for some support. As you exhale, send your hips back and up into dog pose. It's quite a long dog, maybe have a cycle of breath there, and then walk the feet in a little bit if you like. Have a few breaths in your dog pose. Of course, bending the knees as you like. Keep resting through the arms. And then slowly we'll walk the hands in towards the feet, coming into our forward bend. Settling all of the weight in the feet, seeing how does the forward bend feel now. Of course, bring your elbows onto your thighs if that's better for you. Let your head go. Let your arms go. And then start again bending your knees down into your squat. So your knees are bending forwards over your feet. It's fine if the heels come up. Just have a moment or 2 in your squat. And then fingertips back on the floor. Can you gently sort of ease yourself back into cobbler pose? Now I'm just going to swing round for a moment, because in this cobbler pose we'll do, so you don't need to swing around, we'll do something different. We'll come into these side lengthening. Yeah, these side lengthening movements in cobblers. So we're sort of leaning to one side, leaving our pelvis and legs settled in the centre. Good. That's it. Yes. So yeah, I would leave. Yeah, if we're thinking about side lengthening here, I would be trying not to move below the waist. You could be rocking all the way over, but that's possibly something different. I would think here that I'm quite settled with the pelvis and the legs, to then really find this length through the side of the body. Okay, we're going to come one more time. So from here, one more time, come over into your side sitting position. And then from here, bring yourself over onto hands and knees. So one last time through this little sequence of plank pose and then on into dog. So shoulders over the wrists, taking one leg back, taking the other leg back, trying to feel yourself in this long line of plank. I will come have a little look at you this time. Very nice plank poses, fantastic. And then exhaling on into dog pose, sending your pelvis up. Good. You might enjoy that long dog, and then you might also walk your feet in a little bit. Good. You might bend your knees. That's it. And then from dog, whenever you want to, you're walking your hands in towards your feet, into your forward bend. And so you arrive in your forward bend with that feeling of all of the weight in the feet. Your knees can be bent here. As bent as you like. But a tiny bit bent or very bent. And then we start to bend the knees a lot as we start to come down through our squat. So we're starting to bend our knees, and later on in the class we'll come into a squat where we stay with a block or a book under our heels if we need it. But again, in this squat you're going to move on into your cobbler pose once more, and I'm just going to swing round again. So are we there in cobbler pose? Good. And then from this cobbler pose, we're going to come on into pinwheels. So let one knee come on top of the other knee. Let your top leg slide back. And come to a bit of our lovely circling here. So remember, you can have your arms just loose and free. If your shoulders and neck are feeling tight, you can do this one, where you give yourself a hug. You let your head hang forwards. And this just maybe eases out, helps you to ease out a bit more tightness through the neck and the upper back. And from your pinwheel, when you've done enough circling, you're going to release your arms. You're going to turn towards this knee that's going out to the side, and we're going to fold down into our pinwheel forward bend. So one of the things about yoga is that we repeat familiar, movements that become very familiar to us, and this works on a number of levels. There's something soothing about doing something familiar. We can also have a sense of our body here and perhaps how it's a little bit different on any given day. Just letting yourself settle in the pinwheel forward bend, and hopefully it can feel soothing for you in its familiarity. And then walking your hands in towards you. I think one time it'll get far too soothing for me in Zoom, and I shall have a little nap there. Come back into your side sitting. So bring your back leg on top of your front leg. Open your legs out in cobbler pose for a moment. And then come on into side 2 of pinwheel. And a bit of circling. Good. That's nice. Circling. Yes, again, if you want to give yourself a hug, let your head hang. In this one, I always sort of have my hands on my shoulders so I can feel very wide across my shoulders, my upper back. Or you can just have your arms loose and free. It's entirely up to you. And when we're ready to move on to the pinwheel forward bend, we release the arms, we turn towards the knee that's going out to the side. We fold forwards over that leg. Coming down into our pinwheel forward bend, seeing how it feels to settle there. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. Good, so have another 2 or 3 cycles of breath in this side of your pinwheel forward bend. It looks very lovely. And from there, when you come back up into sitting in pinwheel, you're just going to think about how could you come and sit comfortably for a moment, because I want us to sit with a couple of mudras. Now, we're going to sit a bit longer at the end of the class with these mudras, but I'd just like us to do them now because we're actually going to take them into a couple of standing balances. But I thought one of them is really easy, but the other one I thought we might just have a little reminder of. So sit comfortably. So our first one, let's make sure everyone's sitting. Are we there? Okay. Yeah. So our first mudra is really familiar. It's this one where we touch the thumb and the index finger. So when the palms are up, this is jnana mudra. When the palms are down, it's chin mudra. So maybe just have a couple of breaths with the backs of your hands resting on your thighs and feeling that contact of your thumb and index finger. We won't stay here for that long, but closing your eyes and just seeing how it feels to be in that, I suppose, in that place where we've got this very small but clear point of focus, that contact between the pad of the thumb, the pad of the index finger. And as we know, the pads of our fingers are so sensitive. We think about people who can read Braille with their fingers. So it can be very helpful in focusing ourselves. And then open your eyes, and we're going to come on to the second mudra, which some of you may remember. So we keep this contact between the thumb and index finger. We bring the hands in front of the chest. So the left hand faces the chest, the right hand faces away from the chest, and we bring the thumb and index finger of the right hand onto the middle finger of the left hand. Yeah. Is everyone there with this? Yes, very nice. This is this dharmachakra mudra. Yeah, so the right hand faces away from us. I'll come a little bit nearer. The right hand faces away from us. The left hand faces towards us. and we touch the right, so we've got that little pin near the pad of the thumb and finger in the right hand touches the middle finger of the left hand. So we're going to bring it, when we're in standing, we're going to come into this one in tree pose. So I'm just telling you, so you know when we come to that. And this mudra has this lovely meaning where this is about, this hand represents the outer world, this hand represents the inner world, and the point of contact is about the sort of need for harmony between the two. Okay, so let's let that go now. Give the hands a shake out, and we'll come up into standing through dog pose and a forward bend, and then we'll explore those mudras in a couple of standing balances. So I'm hoping that having done it in sitting, it would just be a bit more familiar in standing. So yes, when you're ready, dog pose and then a forward bend coming up into standing. Good. And I think for myself, and I know some of other people I've been teaching, that mudras have been one of the really helpful practices during these uncertain times, because they are very stabilizing. But then I was just thinking very much about, there was this amazing quote that I must share with you. I haven't got it, I'll share another day, that Cam found yesterday. But anyone who's a pet owner, or Jan who have your lovely horse, it was all about how one of the things we can do that best help us to be calm and in the present is spend time with animals. So and this is, yeah, which we all know. But yeah, this is from Rupert Sheldrake, who some of you may know is sort of quite a leading authority on spirituality and science. So coming into standing, so if you have got your lovely animal in your room with you, you can just take a moment to appreciate their beautiful presence. And then in standing, we're going to start to swing our arms, let the hands slap onto the sides of our body. I'm just going to slightly adjust my screen. And it made me think a lot, this thing about the animals, about how many people have their lovely animals with them when they're joining us for yoga on the Zoom. And that's, yeah, seeing all the lovely cats and dogs has been one of my real pleasures of this rather difficult time. Okay, a few more times, swinging your arms. And then we're going to settle down in standing. So bringing the feet to settle on the floor, looking at your feet, hip width apart and parallel. And then stop looking at your feet, maybe close your eyes for a moment. Feel the contact of your feet on the floor. And then open your eyes, let a breath come in. As you exhale, bring your arms up. And just start this reaching we often do through one side of the body and through the other. Reaching up into one arm, into the other. As you reach, shifting your weight into the reaching arm, leg. Good. And then from here, whenever you're ready, we're going to swoop down into a forward bend. So we find all this lovely length through the sides of the body, and then we sweep down into a forward bend and see how that feels. Perhaps that's feeling of being very rooted from the waist down, and then light and free through the arms and the head. That's it, lovely. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then from here, exhaling, we're going to sink into our heels and roll back up into standing. So the little exploration I thought we would do today is we'll do similar balances without mudras, and then we'll try the balance again, maybe slightly differently with the mudras. So this will be without the mudras to start with. So start reaching up through your right arm and let the left arm be heavy and floppy. So we're starting to shift our weight onto our right foot. And the left heel starts to come away from the floor. So that left foot is lightening its contact with the floor until we can let the foot come off the floor completely and catch the top of our foot. Here. Good. And then we can let that raised hand come down onto our breastbone. And see how it feels to settle. It's quite sort of simple, quiet place, but sometimes the simple, quiet places can be challenging. And how does it feel to settle, letting our left knee drop towards the floor, letting our shoulders soften, feeling the right footprint in contact with the ground, perhaps the movement of the breath through your body. Very lovely. Come down, have a little bit of a shake out of limbs, arms and legs. And then settling back down in Tadasana, feet hip width apart and parallel. Maybe a big exhalation and then starting to reach up through the left arm. Let the right arm go. And shifting your weight into your left leg, your left footprint. Starting to let the right footprint lighten on the floor, so the right heel comes up. The weight's coming onto the ball of the foot, and then can the ball of the foot come up and you can catch the top of your left foot or your right foot, or your trouser leg. Let your knee drop towards the floor. And then gather your hand into your breastbone. So again, how does it feel on this side to settle? To settle, to feel ourselves, to soften, to sense the movement of the breath. Good. And it might be for a moment that we we touch upon that feeling of being settled. Can feel very elusive some days. Very nice. And then coming down and having a bit of a shake out. And perhaps maybe I'll just explain to you what we're going to do for the next balance, which we're using the mudra. And then we'll do it together. So we're going to use, you're probably thinking, we're not doing dharmachakra mudra, we're using jnana, chin mudra here. We're going to start off with the hand in the mudra on the breastbone. We're going to catch our foot. And then from here, we're going to reach backwards with the foot, forwards with the hand. And if your hand is facing palm up like this, it's a bit like you're offering the mudra as an offering or a gift. So that's what we're thinking about. Okay, so slightly different variation on the balance with the mudra here. So your starting point is touching. So if we're standing on the right foot, you're going to touch your right thumb and index finger pad together and bring the hand onto your breastbone. And just let yourself feel settled, as settled as possible to start with. We have that anticipation, don't we? And then when you're ready, starting that process of shifting your weight onto your right foot, catching the top of your left foot or your trouser leg. So we're back in that perhaps quiet place. And we're going to go on from here. So we're going to be thinking about reaching back away from our bottom with our heel, pulling that foot back behind us, and reaching forwards with the hand. So we're offering palms upwards, the mudra as an offering or a gift, as we're giving a gift to someone. And see how it feels to have a few breaths there. That's very nice. And in this one, I sometimes let my gaze come a little bit higher up than normal. And that perhaps you then feel that a little bit in the upper back, but sometimes bringing the gaze up a little bit higher, I don't mean up to the ceiling, might make you feel a bit more wobbly. Well done. Very nice. Come down. Just, yeah, have a little shake out. Let's settle in standing before we do the other side. So, yeah, it's just a different feeling. So maybe the mudra brings in another layer, another focus to the balance. It just, yeah, perhaps a different flavour to it. So we'll move on to the second side. So you've got your mudra in your left hand, the thumb and index finger touching. You're bringing your hand onto your breastbone. Just thinking about that sort of steadying contact of your hand on your breastbone, and then shifting your weight onto your left foot. Coming to this first stage of the balance where we're seeing if we can settle, holding our foot, resting the hand on the breastbone. And then we start to reach the foot back behind us, reach the arm forwards, turn the palm up to the ceiling, so as if we're making an offering with our hand. And perhaps our gaze is a little bit more up than usual, but that might make you feel a bit more wobbly, so not necessary. And just, yeah, a breath or two or three. Very lovely, everyone. That's nice. Good. Interesting. Yeah, lovely. Beautiful, beautiful. Well done. Well done. Very nice. Sally, we're in a different room today in the kitchen, so I get a lot of these little tours. Is Max working in the lounge? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I can't actually hear you, but so I'm going to have to unmute you for a moment. I can't hear you. Okay. Okay. Yes. So I do like these little mini tours of people's houses. So it's very interesting. Now we're going to come into a forward bend, and when we're with our feet hip width apart, but when we're in the forward bend, we're going to walk our feet a bit wider, so they're as wide as the narrow edge of the mat. So first of all, fold forwards with your feet hip width apart and see how that feels for a breath or two. And then once you're in that forward bend, so you've gone into your forward bend with your feet hip width apart, and then when you're in that forward bend, you can then walk your feet away from each other until they become as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And see how that feels. Make sure your feet are still parallel, make sure your weight is still in your heels. You could, if you like, do a little bit of shifting your weight from side to side by bending one knee, bending the other. So I'll leave that up to you, whether you feel a little movement would be good there. That's nice. Good. Very nice. Yes. And if you are doing a bit of shifting your weight from side to side, then maybe just end up in the center with perhaps both knees a little bit bent, letting yourself flop forwards. And then let a breath come in as you exhale, sink down into your heels, roll up into standing. Good. And then having a bit of a shake out in standing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come into a very sort of simple, normal tree pose. I've got my plans and it was like that mini tree pose, but it doesn't have to be. I think you can actually choose. Let's actually even come to now choosing which foot we stand on, and you can choose how you have your leg in tree pose. So take a moment to settle in standing, closing your eyes, shifting your weight from side to side. So we have been starting standing on the right foot, and it might be that you want to continue starting standing on the right foot. But if you feel drawn to the left foot now, then you can change size. And then opening your eyes. So you're starting to shift your weight into whichever is going to be your standing foot, and then just maybe have a thought. So it might be you want to do this rotation movement in your hip joint to find that movement where the pelvis faces forwards, the knees going out to the side. So you could choose to do your mini tree, or you could choose to bring your foot a little bit higher up. And we're going to do quite a quiet, familiar tree pose here. So the hands can come into prayer pose once you've organised yourself below the waist. And just, yes, how does it feel to settle in your tree? And if you feel very settled and you want that sense of expansion of bringing your arms up, then you can do that, but you don't have to. And if you bring your arms up, keep the shoulders dropped. Feel the flow of the breath through your body. And after a couple of breaths or so with your arms up, then gather the hands back into your breastbone. Settling in your tree pose as much as possible. Good. And coming down and having a little shake out when you're ready. So again, we're coming back to sort of interesting, I hadn't really realised this contrast of these, you know, what's quite familiar and therefore perhaps soothing for us, as opposed to the unfamiliar, which, you know, can spark our imagination. So start to shift your weight onto the other foot. And yeah, just the foot we just stood on, you can be exploring that movement of the knee coming out to the side, the pelvis facing forwards, and then just wherever you're going to bring your foot onto the inside of your standing leg. So a bit like we did on our side in Anantasana, we have these different options where the foot could go. And gather the hands into prayer pose. Settling, breathing, cultivating steadiness. We might not be that steady today, but that's our intention. Sort of steady, quiet, settled awareness. Good. The arms grow up, the shoulders are soft. We can gather the hands back into prayer pose. And it's fine if we have a little wobble, if we have a bigger wobble. We just gather ourselves back into the balance with as little fuss and bother as possible. Very nice. And I think particularly if you do have a little wobble and then you come back into the balance, you may find that then you can, you know, you want to stay there a little bit longer. Good. You come down if you don't and have a shake out. Now, we're going to come on now to doing jnana mudra and dharmachakra mudra in tree pose. And I'm going to show you the little sequence that I have been working with, I sort of came up with this week, which I quite liked. But you can always do a variation. You might think there's too many elements. So maybe just watch me for a moment and I will show you what I was thinking. So we'll come into tree pose. Yes, I hope you can see me. And then in tree pose, just with the arms down, we'll bring our hands into the mudra. And then I thought we'd see what's it like to take our arms wide. Yeah. And then we can bring the arms up. And at this point, then we would bring the hands down. So we finish with the hands in dharmachakra mudra in front of our chest. However, if you know, if at any point you think that's too many different places for you, and you just want to come from here to dharmachakra mudra, you can do. So it really depends how steady you're feeling, okay? So if we remember that last point, dharmachakra mudra is this one. Right hand faces forwards, left hand faces towards us. Okay, so we'll see if we can remember that. We've got two sides. We have got two sides of tree pose, which is a great advantage. So if we get a bit muddled on the first side, it doesn't matter at all, does it? So let's come back to, and Sarah has the additional challenge of a gorgeous puppy to keep her in the present moment, sorry, as well as the chakras, the mudras. So come back onto your first side of tree pose, and you have your foot again wherever you want it on the inside of your standing leg. And once you've organised yourself, then you're bringing your hands into jnana mudra. So this is the thumb, pad of the thumb and the index finger touching. And then from here, the first stage I was going to is just seeing, it's quite interesting, what's it like to take the arms wide to the sides? We don't often do this in a balance. And from there, we can take the arms up, keeping the shoulders heavy. We've still got that contact of the thumb and the index fingers. And then from there, we bring the hands down in front of our chest into dharmachakra mudra. This point of balance between our inner and our outer worlds. The shoulders drop. Very nice. Very well done, everyone. Amazing. Yeah. So obviously, you know, this is something new, so it might bring sort of greater levels of, you know, it might wake us up, make us sort of feel alert. It also might make us feel a little bit more anxious. So let's move on to side 2 and see how it goes on this side. You're doing really amazingly. And so coming into your tree pose and then bringing your hands into that first mudra, jnana or chin mudra. And then you can go straight into dharmachakra mudra if you like, or you can try this little experiment. What's it like taking the arms wide? Good. Then the arms can grow up, a bit more familiar, that place. Feeling the contact of the pads of the thumbs and the index fingers. And then the hands come down in front of our chest. Right hand facing away from you. Left hand facing your chest. Thumb and index finger of the right hand touching the middle finger of the left hand. Can we let the shoulders drop? Good. We can let the elbows come down a little bit too. Good. Very, very nice. Wonderful. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. Yeah, very amazing. It's very interesting. I think with that, when that point of contact is right in the front of the chest, that can be quite steadying, and that's sort of what I was seeing in everyone. This is quite challenging. I used to always think when I started doing yoga, oh, it'd be easier, like a tightrope walker, to have my arms out to the side when I'm balancing, but maybe not. Now, we're going to do one more little bit of forward bending. I'd like you to face the long edge of your mat, because we're going to end up with our feet wide. But you're going to start off with your feet. We're going to go into a forward bend with our feet hip width apart and then walk the feet out. So face the long edge of your mat. And then folding forwards and just settle in that forward bend. So you're going to have a few breaths with your feet hip width apart. And then what you're going to do is walk your feet out like they were last time. So you're coming perhaps the narrow edge width of your mat. And yeah, so sort of halfway there. Just let's see how that feels to come back with the feet a bit wider for a couple of breaths. And then you can walk the feet wider still. Within reason, please. So we're not trying to do the splits at this point, but we're just, yeah. Good. Just seeing, where would we like to take our feet? Oh my goodness, Mabel has really grown, Sarah. And sinking into your heels. And again, if you like, you could be shifting your weight from side to side by bending one knee, bending the other. My knees sometimes are a bit grumbly in that, so if that's the case, you might just like to stay in the centre, sinking into your heels. And enjoying your wide forward bend. So make sure your weight is well in your heels. You could let the arms, oh, she's so sweet. You could let the arms flop down to the floor. I've got Blue doing a very nice dog pose in the background, so we should all be watching that. And then whenever you're ready, when you want to come out, sinking into your heels, up into standing. Good. Very nice. And yeah, bring your feet back together again. Give your legs a bit of a shake out. Is that right? Yes, we're going to be coming down at the front of the mat through a forward bend into a squat. Now this would be the time if you wanted to stay in your squat with a book or a wedge or a block or something under your heels. So if it's helpful for you in squatting to have something under your heels, to be able to stay in squatting a bit longer, then get whatever it is you're going to use. I'm sure we've all been very creative in these times. And then so at the front of your mat, you'll see why shortly, we're going to roll down into a forward bend, feet hip width apart and parallel, letting the head go. Let the arms go. And then whenever you're ready, start to bend your knees forwards over your feet. And I think it's usually, usually most helpful to then, at the point at which your heels come up, then to slide the wedge under your heels. But if you want to put it in sooner, that's absolutely fine. And then just, have a few breaths in, staying in your squat. So we've got this feeling of the pelvis hanging off the end of the spine. If it's comfortable for you, then let your knees come a bit wider apart and you can fold your rib cage down a little bit in between your knees. And that just might help your back lengthen out even more. And again, whenever you've had enough, you're going to sit down from here using your hands back behind you. And this time, lengthen your legs out on the floor. Give your legs a little bit of roll, sort of back where we started, aren't we? Although not. So, what we're going to do now is, because we're here at the front, not just because we're here, but we're going to come back to some of these rolling back movements, but we're going to go a little bit further with them. And I have got a little variation we'll try today. So let's come back to what we were doing at the beginning of class. So sliding our hands from our feet to our knees, looking down at the belly, letting our back round out. And repeating this several times, seeing how it feels. So hopefully it feels a little bit easier now. Maybe the lower back just feels a bit like it has a bit more movement in it. Keep your shoulders as relaxed as possible. It's quite easy to get a bit tense in our shoulders here. So keep thinking about the shoulders softening and dropping. Let's go a little bit further. Let's just go to the stage where we're rolling back a couple of times and see how it feels. Letting the feet come up. And then looking forwards to come back up. So still keeping your knees bent. Looking forwards to come back up. Good. Okay, what I thought we would try this time, so maybe just sit up for a moment and lengthen your legs out, and you can watch me if you like. What I thought you could have a little play around with today is rolling back, and then from here, what's it like to lengthen out one leg, lengthen out the other, lengthen out both. Okay, you might not want to do all of that to start with. You might just want to try one leg and then the other, but that's if it's all going well and you feel you can stay there, you could try one leg, the other, and then both. So let's roll back. So remember, we're trying to balance on this bit between the ribs and the pelvis in an ideal world. So we're rolling back. What's it like to lengthen one leg, lengthen the other, and then come up again. If you can bear it, we'll try this 3 times. Rolling back down again, trying to find a little balance, lengthening one leg, then bend that knee, lengthen the other leg, lengthen both. Oh, last time. And you will lie down. After this one, we'll lie down. So rolling down, rolling down. Lengthen one leg, lengthen the other, lengthen both. Oh, and then, yes, collapse down onto the floor. Yes, I was just thinking you get that lovely sort of flow of breath into your body when you're lying down there. And yes, if you're Sarah, you get a lovely puppy on your tummy as well. So just settling on your back, enjoying that sort of free flow of breath within you. And yeah, you can lie however you like. You could have your feet, knees bent, feet standing on the floor. You could have your legs long. So just having a few breaths, feeling the weight of your body on the ground. Maybe let your head roll to the right and to the left, because it can get a bit, the neck can hang on a bit in that one. Okay, and then I'd like us to do a little bit of rolling up and down into bridge pose. I mean, so when you're ready, you can bend your knees, you can stand your feet on the floor. And maybe before you come into bridge, perhaps do a little bit of tilting your knees to the right and to the left, and see how that feels. Lovely. And then settling your legs in the center. So your feet standing on the floor, and just maybe a couple of times, see how does it feel to sink down into your footprints, let your pelvis and some of your spine come away from the floor. So rolling up and down into a couple of really easy bridge poses. Make sure you're sending your knees forwards over your footprints. Good. So yes, just a couple of times rolling up and down, seeing how it feels. And then the next time, so roll up again into bridge pose. And then the next time you roll back down, I'd like you to go off to the left of your spine. So you're sort of, you're making, you're rolling down off to the left of your spine and placing, so sort of down the left side of your rib, the back of your ribs onto the floor. And then roll up again. And as you roll back down, go down through the right side of your body. So it's not the actual right, the side of your ribs, but you're going off to the right of your spine. So it's like you're making this sort of alternate path down to the right side of the spine. And then I think each time you roll up into bridge pose, you're rolling up through the spine, through the middle of your body. That's what I would do. And then just keep going down through the sides of the body. So roll up through the middle in bridge pose, up through the spine. And then as you roll back down again, you go off either to the right or to the left, maybe going from side to side. And just seeing how that feels. And I think this is familiar to all of you, but if you're feeling very perplexed, then do press your space bar and ask me. Just this feeling that if we imagine that the spine is this sort of central pathway on our back that we place down onto the floor, what we're doing is we're making a new pathway down on the right and down on the left of the spine, and just seeing how that feels. And when you've done that, perhaps 3 times to each side, then maybe just roll up through your spine and roll back down through the spine. So we're back down through the center and probably feel very easy. And then you can hug your knees into your chest. Have a little roll around on the back of your pelvis. Now, I want us to do this little sequence here, which is sort of a twisting sequence with cobbler pose, which I have taught some of you. It might not be for a while. I'll try and talk you through, but then if it's not making sense, then I'll show you. So you're going to lie down with your feet in cobbler pose with your feet on the floor. So your starting point is your feet on the floor in cobbler pose. And if I do it with you, it might make more sense, so you can look at me if you need to. So you're starting in cobbler pose. We're keeping the shoulders settled on the floor. Now, let your right knee rock over so it comes on top of your left knee. And then you're going to draw that knee. You're going to do a circle with that knee. So you're going to draw that knee, that right knee, up towards your chest, and then circle it out to the right. So the leg comes back and around into cobbler pose. And then try the same thing on the left side. So let the left knee rock over on top of the right knee. And then draw that knee up towards your chest. So it's going on your right side. And then it's going to travel around to the left in a big circle. So your leg comes all the way back into cobbler pose. And then do this again on the right side. So the right knee comes on top of the left knee. You then draw the right knee up towards your left shoulder, and then around across the front of your chest and all the way back down into cobbler pose. And then again, the left knee comes on top of the right knee, and then you draw that left knee up towards your right shoulder, and then around and out to the side and back to cobbler pose. I'm just going to have a look at those of you I can see. And I think, yes, good. Okay, yes, that seems to be making sense. Well done, very nice. Just keep circling a couple more times like that from side to side. Very nice. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to stay in the sort of second stage. So your knee, that's it, Maria, at that point. So you're going to, that's it. And then so if your knee, you brought your knee on top of the other knee, and then you've drawn your knee up towards you a little bit, towards your shoulder. And then you can support that knee with the hand that, yeah, that's it. So the knee's being supported with the opposite hand. And you want the other shoulder to stay settled on the floor, and you can have a few breaths there. Now, it could even be that you'd like to straighten out that top leg, and you could catch a hold of your trouser leg, your toe, your ankle. Oh, but the leg would be lower to the ground, Helen, if you're straightening it out. If that makes sense. Not up in the air, but you might need to, yeah, if you're not sure, you might need to come and have a little look. Because, yeah, if you're straightening your leg out, the leg is probably a foot or so off the ground rather than up in the air. So you stay in this twist. So if you're not sure, do have a look. And have a couple of breaths. Good. Very nice. And then from there, in your own time, you can try the same thing on the other side. So let the other knee come across on top of the bottom knee, and then draw that knee up closer towards your chest. Support it with the opposite hand. So you're thinking here about your knee dropping down towards the floor, and the opposite shoulder is staying settled on the ground. And it might be that you want to roll your head away from your knee to help your shoulder stay settled. And it might be, yes, Sharon, that's very nice. If you straighten out your top leg and it reaches the wall or the door, it looks like it's reaching your door. I'm not quite sure if it's there. Yes, that's very helpful. Or a sofa. So if there's, something that you can prop, yes, a bolster under that leg, Sarah. If there's something you can prop your leg up with as well as your hand, or instead of your hand, then that can be helpful. Good. Excellent. And have a few breaths there. And of course, when you've had enough, you come back to the center and you just do whatever you'd like in the center for a moment. Something, yes, might be both knees into your chest. Yeah, might be lengthen your legs out on the floor, taking your legs to the ceiling. Yeah. Lovely. So in a moment, you can have a few more breaths on your back, just doing whatever you fancy. But in a moment, we're going to come over and we're going to sit, and we're going to sit with the mudras we were practicing in just a little bit more of a, I suppose, a meditative way. And yeah, and see how that goes. So you're going to think about how you could sit comfortably back against the wall if you like. Kneeling, cross-legged on a cushion. So sorry, I've got some silly thing that's come up from Zoom. Right, so let's just start with our hands palms down on our thighs. I'm sorry, I'll cut my head off slightly so you can see my hands. Hands palms down on the thighs, and just a little bit of settling. So it might be here that you want to do a little bit of circling or rocking. You can close your eyes, you can feel the weight of your hands on your thighs. We're just allowing ourselves to settle in sitting. So a lot of this sort of process when we come to do a bit of sitting and breathing is this settling, feeling the pelvis and legs are heavy. Good. That looks lovely. The head well balanced on the top of the spine. Looks very beautiful, everyone. Letting the shoulders drop. Feeling the flow of the breath within your body. And then we're going to turn the hands, so they're palms up, resting the back of the hands on the thighs. And we're going to touch the thumb and the index finger together in jnana mudra. And we're going to see how it feels to settle here. So we touch the thumb pad of the thumb and the index finger together. We close our eyes. We let everything soften and settle. And we feel that contact of the pad of the thumb, the pad of the index finger. Just see how it feels to let our attention settle there. We're letting the hands remain as soft and relaxed as possible. We're feeling the flow of our breath through our body. And when our mind wanders, as it's very likely to do, we can just gather our awareness back into that feeling of the thumb and the index finger touching each other. And while we have this focus of the thumb and the index finger, we're not trying to block anything else out. We can be aware of other sounds, maybe the air on our skin. Other thoughts will come up, and then it starts to get too busy. We just come back to feeling that contact of the thumbs and the index fingers. And then from here we'll come on into dharmachakra mudras. So remember, we have the right, we keep that contact of the thumb and index fingers. The right hand faces away from us. The left hand faces towards us. We touch that thumb and index finger of the right hand to the middle finger of the left hand. And when we come to this, it's just then trying to settle. We've got that point of contact between the two hands. We've got this sense of the right hand facing away from us and the left hand facing towards us. But then as much as possible, can we soften around our shoulders, our elbows? Good. Maybe closing the eyes, feeling that central point of contact between the two hands. So the hands here representing the hand turned away from us, the right hand representing the outer world, and the left hand facing us representing the inner world. And when we sit quietly, meditation, it's about this sense of all of that, a sensing our inner and our outer world. And perhaps the two become more and more merged. And part of the same. So just a few more breaths here. If your arms get tired, then of course bring your hands back to resting on your thighs. Perhaps when you do come out of this, first of all, keep that contact of thumb and index fingers. Bring the backs of your hands to your thighs. For a breath or two. And you can then release the contact of the thumbs and index fingers and turn the hands, palms down on your thighs. Just let yourself settle. If you feel that moving, rocking or swaying now would be helpful, you can do that. Just come to sensing your body, sensing your breathing, being aware of your outer world, the air, the light, the sounds, presence maybe of other people or animals, birds, bees, flies, and also sensing your inner world. How do you feel within inside of yourself? Within yourself even. And just have another, maybe 3 cycles of breath sitting here. So now with the attention at the breathing, feeling your breath coming in, feeling your breath leaving you. And then folding forwards so you can touch the palms of your hands onto the ground. And further forwards if you like to touch your forehead down. You might need to let your bottom come up. And we will then lie down for the last couple of minutes. If you need anything warm on a beautiful day. settling down. As we settle ourselves, or once we've settled ourselves in lying, then then perhaps just coming back to that, what I always think of this as this expansive sense of awareness where we have a sense of both our inner and our outer worlds. So as symbolized in the mudra, the dharmachakra mudra. And when we feel the contact of the back of our body on the floor, that very much is this sense of the connection between our inner world of feeling and the outer world of what we experience, what is there. You can feel the weight of the back of the head, the contact of the back of the head on the floor. You can feel the back of the shoulders resting their weight down onto the ground. The back of the rib cage, maybe some of the vertebrae, the back of the pelvis, maybe the footprints, maybe the whole of the back of the legs, the long weight of the legs. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. In a moment, I'm going to ring the singing bowl 3 times, so no need to move until we reach the end of those 3 sounds. So thank you, everyone. Take your time.